Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was honoured to attend the 30th anniversary gala dinner for an organisation called CanRevive. I did a community recognition statement for CanRevive today, but I wanted to speak a bit more about what they do and why what they do is so important. CanRevive was started in 1995, actually by one of our oldest family friends, my Auntie Rose, who was a cancer survivor. I didn't know at the time, but she had cancer. I just knew that she was unwell because in our culture, you don't really talk about this sort of stuff. So I never really knew what was going on, but Auntie Rose confronted cancer in a system back in that day, 30 years ago, where there were very, very few services for non-English speakers or people where their English wasn't good. And so she had to navigate that system and go through all of that without the sort of language support that exists today. But I really got to learn about CanRevive when a few years later, again, one of my mother's best friends was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she tragically lost her battle with breast cancer. And CanRevive was there to support her through that journey, and I think about that a lot. And I mean, for so many of us, Mr. Speaker, a cancer diagnosis is such a frightening thing, and I want to acknowledge Matt Cross, the member for Davidson, who has battled cancer. I want to acknowledge our Deputy Premier, Prue Carr, who has been diagnosed and is fighting cancer courageously now. For so many of us, such a frightening thing. The cancer diagnosis, such a frightening, I think about it, such a frightening thing. And we imagine having that diagnosis and going through it when your English is not good, when you're a migrant or a refugee, you don't have these mainstream relationships, and just how lonely that can be. And also when you come from a cultural context where it's really hard to talk about this stuff because you don't want to burden your friends. And I know with Auntie Hing, who passed away from breast cancer almost 30 years ago now, I think about how she would have told her family. I think about how she would have told her kids, Raymond and Lena, and I think just how frightened her family would have been. The uncertainty around the future, not knowing what was going to happen and how they would go on without their mother. So that's how CanRevive started. 3 Chinese ladies, 2 cancer survivors, 1 carer, who wanted to provide culturally appropriate support services in language, not just for the cancer patients, but also for their families. The families don't know how to act, they don't know how to provide the support, so it's also for the families. Been doing this for 30 years now. And over that time, they've provided support for over 8,000 cancer patients and their families over that 30-year period, right throughout, Sydney. And they raise their own money. The government's given them a bit of support. Last year, the New South Wales government gave them $100,000 to support one of their programs, which is terrific. And most of all, they raised their own money to do this. And when I think about CanRevive and that story, it's the story of so many other community organisations coming from diverse communities. And I think it's one of the magical things about our multiculturalism and how community organisations partner with government and partner with businesses. Because the government can't do everything. It's really hard for something at the scale of government to reach down into specific communities, very, very hard to do that. We have to rely on community organisations with those on-the-ground resources and knowledge to do that. It's a wonderful example of how community organisations and governments and businesses who donate generously to this work together to provide these essential services. Mr. Speaker, I hope that neither myself nor anybody that I love will ever need CanRevive's services. But in the event that we do, I'm really thankful that they're here. Thanks very much.
I think the member, and